And Ms. Landrieu proposes amendment number 1222.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to speak about this amendment for just a minute, but I'd like to respond to Senator Thune, and I wish that we could get a vote on his amendment as well as this one, because I would like to strongly vote and strongly express objection to his amendment, and I'd like to just comment for a minute. I chair the Homeland Security Appropriations Committee that is actually building the fence. The money to build it comes through my committee, so I've actually gone down to look at the fence that we're trying to build. It was shocking to me, and would be shocking to everyone in America if they would see it, that no matter if you build a single fence or a double fence with space in between, how easy it is for people to be very ingenious about getting over it or under it. So I would be voting against Senator Thune's amendment because I'm not going to waste taxpayer money on a dumb fence. And that's what his amendment would be. We need to build a smart fence. And a fence is not just a physical structure, which can be built out of a variety of different materials with or without barbed wire on the top. A smart fence, which is what Senator McCain and I want to build, since he's from Arizona, I think he knows a little bit more about this than the senator from South Dakota, who doesn't have a border with Mexico, but only Canada, and that's quite different. I think Senator McCain would say, if he were on the floor, that we absolutely want to build a barrier of security, and that will be a combination of a physical structure that is built to the great standards that we can with the technology that will actually shut down illegal immigration. It is not correct for anybody listening to this debate to think that people on the Democratic side of this aisle or people supporting this bill do not want to secure the border. Nothing could be further from the truth. But I can tell you, I may be overridden, people may vote against it, but I'm going to hold the position that we cannot waste billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars building a fence that doesn't hold anybody on one side or the other. We have wasted enough taxpayer money. And so while I didn't come to talk about this at this moment, I am going to talk about it for just a few minutes. This immigration bill is about fixing a broken system, not dumping taxpayer money down a rat hole. And some people want to talk about building a fence. I went to look at the fence. I've been in tunnels that go under the fence. I've watched people climb over the fence, and so has anybody that actually lives along the border, which is why Senator McCain's voice is so important in this debate. No one should think that Senator McCain, who has been the leader on border security in this Senate for 20 years, is not interested in building a strong fence. His state gets affected, just like California and Texas, more directly than any of us, Mr. President, as you know your geography well. So for people, other colleagues, to come to the floor and suggest that the 8 people that put this bill together are not interested in border security is just truly false. And it's misleading. And it's unfortunate. That's what this debate's going to be about. I have respect for my colleague. I absolutely oppose his amendment. But I'm going to come back and give some more facts about how we're building the smart fence, how we're going to keep using new technologies to keep people out that we don't want out and get people in that we want in. Because I want to say one thing about this immigration bill as well. We're the most open society in the world. It is a great source of pride to our country. We are an open, transparent democracy that is trying to create a broad middle class, not only here in America but around the world, and trade and commerce are essential. We need secure borders that open up for trade, that can create jobs. And I am not, as chairman of this committee, going to waste more money building something that doesn't work just so some people can get a headline in their local press. Not going to happen. So we're going to put money in this bill to build a smart barrier that's going to have all the new technology that we need to track down illegal immigrants and to close that off. Then we're also, which is in this bill, going to get the 40% of immigrants that came here under visas that have overstayed. We're going to use new technology like you kind of see on television and some of these fancy shows to find people and, get them in the queue to pay their taxes, learn English, and become citizens. I'm going to come back and give more something to the record, and I'm sure the senator from South Dakota will want to respond to this. But let me talk about my amendment, the citizenship for lawful adoptees. Happily, Mr. President, I don't think there's objection to this amendment, and I'm very happy that I have the co-sponsorship of Senator Coates, Senator Blunt, and Senator Klobuchar. This amendment does not go to the heart of the immigration bill, but it does touch the hearts of many parents and many children who have been caught up in a very unfortunate situation. A couple of years ago, Senator Nichols from Oklahoma, who I had the great pleasure of working with across the aisle on many important adoption bills, he and I passed a bill very important to the adoption community with many others that basically says that when a child is adopted overseas, and we do mostly domestic adoptions in America, but we have anywhere from 10 to 20,000 adoptions internationally, that when someone adopts a child overseas, instead of them, which is very expensive, very time-consuming, and more bureaucratic than it needs to be, our bill several years ago said that once that process is over, once the adoption is finalized, that children will become automatic citizens. It was a great step forward because now at least we have 10 to 20,000 kids that come in, all various ages, infants, teenagers, all the way up to 18. They then don't have to come to the United States and go through a whole other process to get their citizenship because we obviously have a backlog of millions that we're talking about. So this is kind of giving the adopted kids a little express lane, which is what we wanted to do. And we did. But unfortunately, when we pass bills, sometimes, many times, the bureaucracy gets a hold of our law and they start interpreting it in a different way than we had wanted, and they start throwing, barriers in the way. So simply put, my amendment, which is supported by the members that I said, we're going to fix three important provisions in that law. First, it says that if you were adopted into this country and you committed any kind of misdemeanor or felony, just like biological children commit misdemeanors and felonies, that you would not be deported. Deportation is not an option for adoptees. It may be an option for illegal immigrants, but not children who have been adopted by American citizens. So we're going to correct that. They're going to have the full penalties against them. They can go to jail for a long time. They can do whatever, the law says, but deportation is not one of them. And there have been very sad circumstances where adults who were brought here, but the parents failed to get their certification, have been deported back to a country they never lived a day in, don't speak the language, and as far as they know in their mind, they're completely American, even if they did know their country of origin. It's very unfortunate. It's happened. This is going to bring help to maybe dozens, hundreds. It's not going to be more than that, families, and prevent any deportations of adoptees in the future. Secondly, over time, the Child Citizenship Act has been misinterpreted so that the adopted children of Americans living abroad, particularly for military, diplomatic, and other reasons, do not receive automatic citizenship upon entering the United States. And we intended, when we passed our bill, for this apply to our military families and our diplomats, many of whom are serving in a country. They have the opportunity to take in a child that's completely homeless, has no parents, and they're doing God's work, obviously, doing this. And they've been caught up in some bureaucratic haggling, so we're going to try to correct that. And then finally, it clarifies that when parents are required to travel overseas to adopt a child, some countries require two parents, some countries require one. Whether the country requires one or two, one will be sufficient to meet our standard. If two are required, then two have to go. But if only one is required, one is enough to meet our standard. There have been, again, after months and months and years, parents go through all of this trouble to do something that they really believe God's called them to do, to adopt a homeless or an unparented child or sibling group, only to come home and find that their own government, which would be our government, is, nitpicking, I would say, this law to prevent them from getting an easy path forward. So I hope that there will be no opposition to this amendment, and I'm happy if we have to take a vote at 51 votes or 60 votes. I'll take any vote of any number for this bill. I hope that the members will support it. And I'm sorry that I have to oppose Senator Thune's amendment, but I will be opposing all amendments that I don't think really support the underlying nature of a smart barrier, a fence that is both physical and virtual, with new technologies that will actually do the job. Because otherwise, I could not even tell you how shocking it was, I'm switching subjects now, shocking it was to go down to the border and see the number of tunnels that were built under the fence. You could build 3 fences, and they will still build tunnels under these fences. You could build 4 of them. I'm not going to waste people's money on that. I'm very sorry. So we are going to figure out a way to use technology to find these improper entrances to our country and close them down. It might not be, it may be an actual fence in some places. It's going to be a virtual fence in other places. It's going to be special technology, lasers, helicopters, infrared, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Senator McCain actually had a list of the equipment that we intend to buy with this taxpayer money, and I'm going to come to the floor and maybe spend some hours reading off the list so that people know that we most certainly aren't saying no to a fence because we don't want to secure the border. We're saying no to the fence because it's a waste of money. And we don't have any money to waste around here. We need to do smart technologies. Now, I'm going to read Senator Thune's entire amendment because I have not read the details of it. I do believe that I will be opposing it. It may be that his words did not appropriately say what his amendment does. But if it's an amendment that requires a complete fence, not a virtual fence, I will oppose it. If his amendment says that we want a smart fence and we need to build more of a smart fence, then I will support it. And I just want everybody to know that's going to offer amendments about the fence, that this is going to be the position that I take. I'm going to try to encourage as many people as I can to assume the position that I have because I think it's the right position, and I think the taxpayers will support this. We want a secure border that's smart, with the smartest technology possible, not one that just spends untold amounts of money, decade after decade, and fail and fail and fail and fail again. So I yield the floor, and I see the senator still on the floor.
Senator from South Dakota.
Mr. President, if I might, I will just make a couple of